Wish you were one of those influencers with raving fans who binge on your every word, consume all your content, buy everything you have to sell, and demand even more? Then stay tuned while Authority Magazine columnist and BuzzFeed contributor Tracy Hazard shares strategies, tips, and tactics from top videocasters, podcasters, authors, and social influencers on creating that bingeable factor. Now, let's join Tracy as she explores how to rise above all the digital noise with the binge factor.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Binge Factor. I'm Tracy Hazard, and today we have another on-air coaching. So we did a lot of more of those earlier in the year, but I'm excited to bring them back to you when I can, because I think we learn a lot from these. And Tom Hazard, my partner, and I have been doing a lot of on-air coaching. We've been doing a host in the hot seat on Clubhouse. But the unfortunate part is that's not recorded. It's not kept, so that there's no longevity to it. So I can't share it with you and say, here's what we learned. Here's what we shared with someone. Here's what somebody's great show was. I can't do that with you. So I'm excited to bring you this episode. And I was so relieved that the host was going to let me, because there's so many great things that he has going on in his show, but there's also so many things that he could be doing slightly differently that might benefit his business more, and it might benefit yours as well. And that's my goal with these on-air coaching, is to highlight those things that could really help you all be more successful together, because there's a lot of patterns of things that happen out there. So let me tell you about Lewis Morris, my guest today. His show is called The Heart Matters. It's helping people improve their relationships and improve their spiritual lives. It is a podcast for people who want to have it all in their relationship, from effective communication, affection, being fascinating and fascinated by your partner, and having great sex. This sounds like a great show, doesn't it? That's a great, compelling description that he uses. And I love that about the show. But the show is so much more than that. The Heart Matters offers straight talk and insightful interviews on all these issues and more. It's also a podcast for people who want to improve their relationship with the creator or establish a relationship with him and make it stronger. The Heart Matter provides answers and solutions for spiritual questions. In essence, this podcast is about improving people's lives from the inside out, because the heart truly matters. And the great thing about Lewis Morris that you're going to find out as you go through the show with me, and the great thing about Lewis Morris that you're going to find out about him, is that he started this podcast first. He really just wanted to be touch point and reach out and be passionate about this growth that he wanted to see in relationships among people he could touch through his show. He didn't know it was going to lead to a business. And that's what's so exciting, is when people respond to your show and say, Lewis, I'd like more from you. And you turn it into a business that you feel just makes you thrive. And he calls it stirring the pot when he's in his success. I sometimes call it in my element, right? But he's in his element. He's truly where he feels the most passionate and the most useful, when he's doing his show and when he's coaching his clients, which has all come out of the same thing. So it's an amazing show. I can't wait for you to check it out. I'm going to refer to lots of different little things that I want you to check out in his show, both for things that could be improved and things that are really great about his show. So you're going to want to check out The Heart Matters with life coach Lewis Morris on your favorite player, and just check that out. And then let's listen to the on-air coaching session with Lewis Morris. Lewis, thank you so much for joining me. I'm excited to talk about The Heart Matters. And I love that you have that as the central, like you chose a name that wasn't the Lewis Morris Show, right? You chose a name that was about The Heart Matters, chose really at the place that you're serving in your podcast. And it truly expresses that going on. Plus, it ties really nicely to your brand on your website. So I love to see that going on there. So you've got a lot of nice things going on. But tell me about why you decided to start the show.
Okay, so I always wanted to interview people when I was younger. And I grew up in the project, so I would rehearse in my bedroom. I wouldn't tell my friends, because they would have thought I was soft or something like that. But I would rehearse. I watched all the shows, Johnny Carson, Letterman. I didn't want to do a show like that. I wanted to do more of a show like Barbara Walters interviews, what Oprah does with Harry and Marco. I want to do that. So I would rehearse in my bedroom. So I would be the host, and the guest.
I love that. You did both sides of it.
Yeah.
I always wanted to be a press person, and I had a press hat with like a little thing and typewriter. So so that's great. So you've been prepping for this your whole life, and now you got this chance. What made you say podcasting? That's the thing. That's where I'm going to start this.
Okay. What that was the opportunity that I had, because at first I could do it on my phone. You know, they have these apps where you can download them on your phone and you could do it on your phone. So I started on my phone. Now, when I first started, I didn't know that I could interview people as well. I just thought I would come on and just talk. So that's how I started. I would just, come on and just talk for maybe 15, 20 minutes about, any subject that I felt that needed to be talked about. And it didn't have a name at first. I didn't have a name for it. It was just something that I was doing. But as it evolved and people started, paying attention to it, then I said, well, I have to give it a name. I have to give it like a photograph and, make it more professional. Now, if you look at the earlier ones, it's clear I had no idea what I was doing.
But you know what? That's the great part about podcast audiences, isn't it? They're nice and forgiving, right?
Yeah.
And they're happy to come along with us. Well, you have a great voice for it. Like, that's an easy thing. You have this nice resonance voice. You have a nice paced way that you talk. When you're talking on your own topics, and an excitement. You obviously love people. Like, it's great when you're doing an interview. I see it. It's a different energy than when you do it on your own topic shows, but they're still both equally amazing. So you've got something going. I can see why people like your show.
I appreciate it. I really do. And the reason that I named it The Heart Matters is a tradition that I don't know if anyone would be familiar with it, but it's a tradition that states that there's a morsel of flesh in the body. If it's good, the whole body's good. If it's disease, the whole body is disease. Surely it's the heart. So I wanted to name the show something centered around that particular tradition. And I wanted to have people on that would talk about stuff that was beneficial, Now, of course, we have lighthearted moments up there, but, I wanted people to come on, and talk about beneficial stuff. So that's why I named it The Heart Matters. And I think it works.
I think it really does work. It's a great name for you. So you're a life coach, and more importantly, a relationship coach. You work with a lot of couples. Yeah. So how has the podcast fit into the business goals that you have?
It hasn't fit into it really well yet, because I just hired a new coach.
Okay, you hired a new coach. Love that.
I just hired a new coach last week, and she's looking at all of my stuff now. So we're just gonna work on some verbiage, and we're gonna change some things on the website, because basically I started out too broad. So I started out too broad, and what I was doing, I was just trying to coach couples, who were having problems in their marriage, right? But what I found was on social media, on Instagram and the like, there were more people interacting with me who were divorced, or who had just had a breakup, or who just wanted to get back in the relationship scene.
So they still have relationship goals. They're just not necessarily defined as a couple yet.
Right. They're not they just either they're divorced, they broke up with somebody, or they want to get back in the relationship scene. So these are the people that have been coming to me. These are the people I've been working with. So because of that, I have to niche down to that.
Actually open up a little bit. I think you're actually opening up a little bit. Yeah. I mean, I think in a way you're opening up just a little bit in terms of your languaging. So you're being a little more universal in who you're covering, but I don't think your topics are any different. And I think that's really clear. Is like your message to couples. And you've done some really great shows where you have, things for them to consider. Like, you'll pose questions that they should ask themselves. Like, what do they expect from a relationship? You were asking really, if you're not clearly defining what you want from this, then how do you expect to get it? And
Right.
that's a great topic right there. And it doesn't matter whether you are divorced looking for the, what will be next for you, or you're in a relationship today. That's a great idea to be setting up that question for myself, to be thinking about what do I want, and am I setting those expectations so that I actually get that at the end, right? So thinking about that is like, I think your topics still fit no matter what. It's just your languaging around the who might change a little bit.
Okay.
And
All
so
right.
I think you're going to be great. So that's a great solution for you, is to really start to see. And I love that the conversation is happening somewhere. So whether it's happening on Instagram, it's happening with people emailing you, or they're saying to you in person, is that you're seeing that your audience actually might be different than you originally intended. That happens to a lot of us podcasters out there. I started a tech podcast. It was one of my first shows, and we thought it would all be like geeky 14 to 25-year-olds in their garage. And it turned out to be a bunch of retirees and a bunch of teachers in the Midwest. So it turned out to be a whole different audience than we expected. And so, that's a great aha, because it shows that you're getting engagement. So you're doing something right. And now it gives you an opportunity to work on something, to change something. So really great. I love that. So what would be, if you had a goal for your show, what would it be? What would you like to see it do for your business?
I love coaching, and I just told my coach that the other day, you know what I'm saying? And I didn't really know how much I loved it until I actually started coaching people, because when you start coaching people and you're dealing with intimate matters, I'm not talking about business. I'm sure that's fine. I'm sure people who do business coaching and stuff like that, get their own satisfaction. But when you're dealing with matters that affect the heart deeply, and you see people have those aha moments, and some people that I've been talking to and coaching recently have even cried, when I'm talking
you see
to them,
breakthrough,
right? And I asked them certain questions, that they didn't consider regarding relationship issues. It's a profound thing. So I want to be able to, I don't want people crying on the podcast.
You would like to see the podcast, though, lead to more coaching, right? That's the ultimate goal. Whether it's happening on the show or off the show, it doesn't matter, as long as more coaching is the net result. Okay, so we're going to coach what we do today. So now we'll move into a little bit of the on-air coaching part that we're going to do, now that we have a sense of that's not kind of our goal here. So, for some people, their goals might be advertisers and things like that. And that's not right for you, because you're creating an intimate situation. If you were start to hawking, Match.com on your show, that would be awful. It just wouldn't be in line with the tone that you want to set. So we're not here to do that. We're here to say, we want Lewis to be the coach you want after listening to this show, right? We want them to get comfortable with you, and we want them to come and feel like they can reach out and feel that invitation you're leaving for them on the show is a true invitation, that they are invited to book a call with you, and that they should take advantage of that. They want to not only take advantage of it, but they want to do it. That's what our goal with the show should be. So are we comfortable moving on to the coaching part of that?
That's fine.
Okay, let's do that. So you do a really great job of connecting and lifting in the conversations that you have. And I hear this wonderful tone that you have throughout, this resonance that you have throughout it. There's a difference. And I want you to go back and listen to your episodes. I want you to listen to the beginning and the end of your episodes, and as opposed to the content. So I want you to compare it to when you're talking about the topic in the middle. So what I hear at the beginning, because your show is not an edited show, meaning that someone isn't going through and editing the audio on you, which is fine, but you have a hesitation. You have a lot more ums and ahs and less confidence in your voice when you're doing the intro and when you're doing the close. So when you're asking people to find you, to like you, to share you, when you're asking people to help you, and you're sharing, doing what I would call the soft selling, because you're not heavy selling, right? The soft selling side of it, there's a lack of confidence there that is coming through in your voice that is not there at all in your interviews or in your topics. So we need
I'm still uncomfortable.
You are. Right.
I'm still uncomfortable selling. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
I'm working my way to, it's not that I don't understand that I have to do it. It's just that, it's not that I don't feel that what I have to offer has value. It's just that I've never sold.
Right. And a lot of people haven't before. I actually have given speeches for 25 years, and I would give speeches on stages all the time. And about, I guess it was maybe 6 years ago, I went and got someone to teach me how to sell from the stage. And I pretty much only do about 10% of what he taught me, because I never do a heavy sell. That's not who I am. But what I learned there was a confidence level that has served me invaluably. So one of the first things I want to shift with you is, first off, you don't actually have to do the selling on your show. I want you to think about that. We can.
Wait a minute.
Right. What?
I want you. I need you to explain that so that I need to get that down. What do you mean I don't have to do the selling?
What if you had a professional intro and outro that did it for you? What if you had the voice of authority, an announcer who said, here's where you can find Lewis everywhere on social media. Here, you can go to lewismorriscoaching.com. Here's, he's got a course, he's got these things. What if you could put that into a formal intro and outro that does it for you? So the only thing that you would do is do the opportunity and invite portion. So in other words, let's say you just talked about a topic that was very serious about people who may have experienced a loss of their spouse or something like that. So you can make that specific kind of opportunity and saying, hey, if you're dealing with a loss, and I know that a lot of you are right now because of the pandemic and because of other things, I want you to remember that I have this opportunity for you to have a call with me. It's on my website at lewismorriscoaching.com. And I really would invite you. I look forward to helping you through this hard time. So you're really saying that in talking to that person in a very specific way of what you're inviting, instead of having to do this whole like spiel, which makes you uncomfortable, of subscribe, rate, and review. And like, there's so much to cover in that. And you're like, did I do it all? And there's a nervousness that comes from just, did I remember to say this? Did I name my Instagram page? If we remove it to only the thing you want to invite them to do at this moment, based on the heavy topic or the topic that you just talked about, or the interview that you just conducted, where there's a relation to that, like, come and find this person by finding them on my website. You're making that one single call to action opportunity. That's it. Then we don't have to do this formal stuff anymore. And you'd be surprised how much better it is to have somebody else say, you should do this, right? You should check out more from Lewis Morris, right? You'd be surprised how much that works for you. Because remember, we were talking about Oprah, we were talking about David Letterman. They don't introduce themselves. And I've raised this point before. Stephen Colbert had, when he started his brand new show, he thought he would break the mold and announce himself on the show. It lasted 1 week before there was so much backlash against that he stopped it, because it wasn't having it was having this weirdness to it, where it was like, hey, I'm great, come and find me. And it had this weird uncomfortableness to it, instead of, you're listening to Lewis Morris on The Heart Matters. And as always, you can find him at his website and at these social media. That just really kind of sets a tone and a repetitiveness of doing it the exact same way that helps the audience act faster.
Okay.
How do you like that?
Okay, well, how would we accomplish something like this? What would this look like?
Okay.
What would it cost? How much would I have to pay?
Well, so first off, I'm happy to help you with that, and we can talk about what that looks like. But for most of you, you can go on Fiverr and get this accomplished for $25 to $50. You can do intros and outros. You do need to script them. Don't get me wrong. And you should script them and say them, because sometimes we write things that don't read well. So then when someone else reads it, it doesn't have an energy level. So I like to write it out so that it's the right thing. And then I like to say it myself within my own energy, so that whoever I give it to as a voiceover artist will utilize that as a model. Of course, I hire them because he has a male voice and I have, I wanted a different voice sound. I want a different tone to it. And that you can do. You can contrast yourself by hiring a female voice artist. Add a little music to it, little underneath it, and the whole thing works. And there are people who do this on Fiverr that you can hire. We're a company, Podetize. Of course, we do this for all of our clients, and I can help you with that as well on a single one thing. But I think it would make it easier for you. And I don't suggest it to just anyone, because I think podcasts should have a professional intro and outro, but we're making them shorter and shorter and shorter in terms of intros, and slightly longer on the outro side of it, so that you accomplish more connections and selling over there. Because the audience, if they're listening to more than one episode after another, we don't want to make it super long. So these are really short, sweet, to the point, but transfer that authority to you. And it gets a lot of this messiness at the beginning out of the way, so that you can hit the ground with the confidence of the topic that you've got going on for you. So,
okay, but we need to, all right, we need
yeah,
to
it should be inexpensive. I'm just going to say that to all of you out there. If you spend more than $100 doing intros and outros, that's because you went and got fancy music and high-end, recording artists. You don't need that. It should be inexpensive. This should be an inexpensive one-time thing that you do. So, super simple. That's just an easy ad. And then it actually takes away a little bit of the extraness you need in the show. You don't need it. I do want you still to make an invite to your audience. If this resonated with you, so even if you don't have something you want to sell, that say, if this resonated with you, would you message me on Instagram? Message me on wherever you prefer in social media. Instagram sounded like what what you said was a place people contacted you. So I suggest you stay with that one place. Message me on Instagram and let me know your biggest challenge. Let me, if you reflected on this question and you want to share the result with me, share it with me on Instagram. So you're inviting them to engage with you. That's the one thing that you do, but it's related to the topic. It's not this general like, rate and review, subscribe, come and join my email list. It's none of those kinds of things. It's a direct interaction. And then when they interact, what I like to do is when they do engage, I comment back to them immediately. So when they say something, they send you a post, they send you a message, comment back personally immediately and say, hey, I think this is wonderful. Would you like to talk further with this? This is an invitation to have a further discussion. And I just want you to know that I have free coaching calls, or I have, free touch points out there for you, or I have a webinar. I'd be happy to send that to you if you're interested. And this gives you the conversation place happens after the podcast, right? Because you're building now a relationship with that fan. And I know you know how to build relationships, right? Yeah,
like that.
You should be really good at it, right?
I like that. All right.
Yeah. So now the other part of that, so that's sort of the simple area. And I think that, I kind of consider these things what I call housekeeping, right? I got to tell people where to find me, the housekeeping things. But sometimes when we're doing interviews, it feels weird to have a housekeeping thing. That's also another reason why a formal outro is just an easy, because you end your interview and you don't want to do, oh, okay, and let me sell you my webinar, or let me invite you to, right? Because you just had an interview with someone else. And so that's a weird kind of situation. So what I like to do is leave that invitation, that opportunity that you offer at the close of an interview, is you would say, thank you for being on the show. I so appreciate you. And listeners, all you listeners out there, you can find my guests by going to the blog post for this episode at lewismorsecoaching.com, so that you're inviting them to go to your core website to connect with the guest. So I know you ask your guests a lot of times, where can they find you? But I ask my guests ahead of time, and because you filled out the form, it's actually in the form. And so I ask them ahead of time. So when I do the close to the show, I'll be saying, you'll be able to find Lewis on Instagram, LinkedIn, all of those places that you'd like to find him. Go to the blog post for this episode, so that I'm clearly driving them through there to that person, because I want them to remember that I'm the one who gave them the value by inviting them on to interview. But I also want to make it so that my audience is served by the fact they only have to remember one thing. I don't have to figure out how to spell your guest name. I don't have to figure out how to find them. I don't have to remember anything but the thing you've been saying again and again and again. in intros and outros and throughout the shows, lewismorsecoaching.com, right? So I'm reinforcing where I want to drive everyone. And that's the only thing, they won't forget it, just like I didn't forget it, right? And I only listened to a handful of your shows. So, so that's important as a way to close those interviews off, but still get traction from it to your website, traction from people coming through that. So you can see that they're responding to those episodes. Is that helpful?
Yeah, it's very helpful. Okay, so I spoke to
Jen.
I spoke to Jen today. I spoke to Rafi Wagner.
Oh, Rafi. Yes, I had her on the show just recently. Her episode aired last week.
Okay, so Rafi, she raves about you and what you do, and she says that she is about to switch. I don't know if she's going to be working with you. Is she going to be working with you?
I hope so. I'm really looking forward to it. So yes, absolutely.
Okay, so you and her already talked about that.
Yes, we talked about different things. Yeah. So yes, we definitely talked about it. We have not come to a solidified arrangement yet, but I'm really looking forward to having her work with us.
Okay, so how would this work? If I wanted to have the Heart Matters part of the Binge Factor family.
Okay,
how would this work?
So the Binge Factor is a show on Podetize. Anyone can have a show on Podetize, right? So the Binge Factor is a show on Podetize. We have lots of clients. We have the Conscious Pivot is a show on Podetize. We have 560 something shows on Podetize. So Podetize is where we all are housed, where there's coaching and where there's other things like what you're getting from me today. Although nobody really gets that from me. You get this lucky spot because you're willing to share this with an audience too. You get this lucky spot of being able to share what I have to say. We do sometimes them on Clubhouse. That's how I met Rafi. I got to give her on-air coaching in Clubhouse, which was so much fun. And then she came on to my show as well. But this is the idea, is that you have your coach who's helping you through your business goals, your website, the things that you need to accomplish. But we need to support that better in the podcast industry. And that's what I'm working here on the Binge Factor, and I'm working in Podetize to make happen for everyone so that there's a complete support system. So as you may know, there are a lot of podcasters out there who quit their show, and they quit them pretty early. It's called a high pod fade rate. People quit at 10 episodes, 25 episodes, 24 is the number. Right around there, they're always quitting their shows and not giving it the long-term value because they don't have the strategy and goal in mind from the beginning, and they aren't making shifts in their show as they're seeing success. So it's so great, Lewis, that you saw people interested in it and said, I'm going to get a little more professional. I'm going to get a professional cover art design. I'm going to give my show a real name. Now I'm recommending your next step is a professional intro outro. Like, you make these shifts over time. You don't have to do this all at once. You're just say, I'm ready for this. I have the budget for it now. Or I'm just ready to take on another thing, change something about my show. We want to be here to support you both in the podcasts that we're putting out at the Binge Factor and Feed Your Brand. And that's why Podetize has a weekly coaching as a part of our hosting program. So I'm not here to sell anyone. Like, this is not the point of it, but we have our hosting comes with coaching because we realize that you may just randomly have a question, and it's just not okay to go just check a FAQ on some website. We want you to be able to actively ask that live. And so that's why we have a weekly live coaching. That's why we have our Clubhouse. Today's Clubhouse was Ask Anything Podcasting. And that's on Tuesdays. And on Thursdays, we have Host in the Hot Seat. So you can hear us do a critique like this of other people's shows, because you might learn something from that and say, I have that problem too. Someone is learning from the fact that you had a little ums and ahs going on. And I heard that in your intro or into the introduction section of your show. And they may be like, that's me too. I could try a professional intro. That sounds like a great idea. So that's why we want to do this here, is to create this like bigger support structure and create an environment where people like Rafi, who have amazing experience in what they've done with their show and a lot more technical knowledge too, because she's pretty tech savvy, be able to support other people, not just have it be my viewpoint. Because I'm of the viewpoint that the more data, the more information, and the more success stories we gather together, the more we see a pattern of things working. Just like you've probably done that in your business. You see, if I ask these questions, I get better results. If I have people contemplate these things, they get better results. That's what I'm always looking for, is how can we amp up our results so that we do less work, but we get higher returns on that work. That's always the way, right? Instead of saying, this is the way I started my podcast, you should start yours this way too. It's programmatic. That's not good for anyone. You're not me. We're definitely not the same person, right? And our goal and our shows don't have the same goals, right?
Okay. All right.
So one of the ones that I'm going to suggest to you next is, I have we did an interview with Kim Seltzer, and I recommend this to life coaches all the time. Kim Seltzer is a successful relationship coach. She has a podcast called The Charisma Quotient. The Charisma Quotient is a very well-defined show. She's had it since 2016, I think. It's been quite a while she's had the show, and it's changed and pivoted, and she's gotten new cover art, and she renamed it at one point. So she's changed the show over that whole 5-year period that she's done the show. But in today's embodiment, she does some things that I think would be great for you to look at in terms of modeling. So she has her one show of the week. Her first show of the week is a topic, just like you've been doing some topic shows. So her first show of the week is a topic. She wants to have a direct conversation with her clients and her listeners, right? The prospective clients out there. So she wants to do that. So she sets a topic. It's a shorter episode. It's not as long as the interviews. It's not as long as the others. Then the second one she does is an interview. But she does something really interesting. And in the interview she gave me on the Binge Factor here, she talks about the introduction section of the person she's introducing. So you interview someone and you give an introduction of them, like why are they on the show, who they are, why they're successful. Maybe there's a personal story behind it. You'll tell that. But she does one more thing. She sets the tone of the conversation. So she invites other relationship coaches into her show, but she's setting it like it's a debate and discussion between two coaches. And it's a really interesting model, because what she wants is that if another relationship coach has an audience, fans on social media, maybe listeners if they have a podcast, but those might not be the right people for them. They might be right for her as a coach. So she wants that transfer. She wants that person's listeners to become her listeners, and maybe her clients. And of course, the other person's coming on the show expecting the reciprocal, right? So we're expecting that cross exchange of audience, because in podcasting, the audience exchange is generous, right? I'm more than willing to listen to multiple podcasts if I want to improve my life. And so they're not going to lose anyone by having that happen, but there might be more resonance with someone that says, Kim's the right coach for me. Just like there might be more resonance that Lewis is the right guy for me, that kind of thing. So we want that to happen. So, but by setting the tone of what they're going to discuss for the day, they've set it up as two great coaches, like tackling an issue together. And you set it up on this much more equal ground, which is really interesting way to go. Might be something you want to try, because I bet you have conversations with other coaches out there about how do you tackle this with your clients. And let's talk today together about ways I've done it, ways you've done it. And it's much more of an equal conversation than it is an interview. Not that there aren't a few interview pieces in there so you can get to know the person, but for the most part, that's there. What do you think of that idea?
I haven't had many relationship coaches on.
No, but if you could bring people, and she does this too, like she might, because she's a dating expert. So she might bring someone who's a stylist, because there's confidence in how you look. So there might be some, ancillary things. You might want to bring a coach on who is a coach for divorcees with kids, because you now have, what do you do with the kids in that? So you're saying, I'm helping to coach these divorcees to get out there and go on to the next thing, but their kids are resisting it. What do you do when you coach these families? And so getting their input and their insight, that could be great for your audience and adding like a broader viewpoint to a topic.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right,
so,
I see.
but because they have followings, because you want to make sure they do, right? They have fans out there, they're out on social, their following might become your following. And that is really important. That's what we want to cross. If we're going to do interviews, we want to have it benefit us from that cross promotion, right? Benefit them and benefit you. So You're doing both at the same time. So then the third show that Kim does, because she does 3 a week, which I'm not suggesting you do, because you can always do 3 different styles in a month. It doesn't have to be in a week. But the third style she does is what we're doing here, on-air coaching. So somebody applies to get a free on-air session with her, and she does it on air with them. And so it's not for everybody. Some people want to be really private about it, but there are people out there who are willing to, because they can't afford you, but they really want to get to have an hour with you or a half hour with you or whatever that is, that they'll do that they'll come on air, that they're open to that. And when they do, what happens is your audience hears you in action. They hear what your coaching is like, and they go, I could do that. I could see myself in that seat. So, if I were to give relationship advice, and I've been married almost 30 years. And so, like, that's really great that I can give my perspective to it. But there's someone in the audience that goes, I have different problems. I've only been married 5 years, so it doesn't have the same perspective. But if you're bringing in different people from different backgrounds and different values, when I'm in the listener seat, I go, that person matches me. And look, Lewis is helping them. He could help me too. That's a way to close that gap of that hesitancy to reach out to you and close a client loop. The other thing that tends to happen is that person walks away from that coaching call with success and comes back and says, I would like to do business with you. I would like you to be my coach, Lewis, because I did what you said and my life is infinitely better. So I'm now valuing what you do at a higher, that I can find the money to do this, even though I thought I couldn't afford it. Now I realize I can't not afford it, right? That's what you want them to say. I'm investing in myself, right? And we want to get them to that place. So these are just some ideas. I don't want you to go ahead and go out and do all of them. I just want you to go through them and say, these are some considerations on ways in which I could improve my show, and I could do something that might achieve the goal better for me. But what feels right for me? What feels right for me right now is also important, because doing it all at once is crazy. We can't, right now you might want to tackle the intro outro. And then a couple months from now, when your website's ready and you've made some of those other changes and languaging changes, you may say, I'm now going to go out and seek some other interviews with these other types of coaches. And I found the right ones because I listened to some shows and I said, these are the right people for me. How is that feeling? Are we feeling overwhelmed, or are we good? If you can't hear it, he's laughing kind of silently. I can see it on the camera. So if you're listening, there's a lot of silent laughing.
Okay, I'm saying this is gold.
Well, don't worry. That's why you're getting a recording, right? Don't worry about that.
I have to write things down. I'll process it better. But I like the first idea and the last idea.
Awesome. See, right? Good.
The intro and outro, that I could see how that could be useful, because I'm not good with the selling thing, so I'm just not good with the selling. I don't know, what I'm saying is that when I'm just talking, I'm okay on a podcast. When I get into my subject matter,
you're
on
great.
A podcast, I just go, because I'm stirring the pot.
Yeah, exactly. And that's right. And so that's why I'm inviting the listeners to come and listen to it, your show and listen to those 3 segments separately, because there's clearly a different energy in your topic that is amazing. And so what if we can get that energy at the beginning and at the end, then we're going to be gold all the way through your show, right?
You have to understand that once I get into because I have a love for helping people with intimate matters. So once I get into talking about, and one show like comes to mind where I ask, I asked 3 relationship questions, right? And one of
It's
them
one of my
was,
favorites, by the way.
one
That
of
was
them was, what is it that you want out of the relationship? So once I started talking about that, I'm stirring the pot.
Yeah.
There's no nervousness there or anything like that, because one, I know what I'm talking about. You know what I'm saying? Because I have to know, like,
Right.
when I'm dating someone and I'm going out with some, I know what I'm looking for from this person, right?
Right.
Also, I'm not trying to sell anything. I'm just talking about something that I'm passionate about.
Right. So I'm going to stop you right there, because I want to do your binge factor, because you've just hit on a little piece of why your binge factor is there. So as for those of you listeners out there, you know that on our regular shows that we always analyze somebody's binge factor and we say why that's what's making them successful. And this is the factor that in Lewis's case, I don't want him to mess with, because this is the factor of where his success lies, and he's doing it right now. And if he messed with it and didn't keep it, that wouldn't work for him. And so the binge factor is, of course, the thing that gets listeners to come back, buy from you, ask for more, listen to all the episodes, of course. And that's why they do that. So what we want is that again and again, we want them to get you in their ear through this. And so that's why the binge factor is so critical. So here's what I'm going to term your binge factor is. The binge factor for the Heart Matters is the benevolence that you, Lewis Morris, bring to the show. And when I use the term benevolence, which I know is a spiritual term that you get, right? Yeah. Benevolence is combining, in a sense, your intense passion and deep commitment to the success of your clients and the audience. So you are invested in us being successful as listeners. And you are putting that care of what you're giving to us above your business goals. In other words, you're not holding back anything. You're giving freely of your information, of your content, of what you share with us, because at the end of the day, you care more about us than you do your business. Now, the reality is, your business will come from that deep caring, because when we show benevolence for others, it is the number one factor that says, I want to reciprocate that. I want to do business with you. So even if I'm unable to do business, or you're not the right person for me right now, I'm likely to share you with someone who it is. So I'm giving back to you because you gave to me. And so benevolence in and of itself is, to me, the first and foremost thing that we as podcast hosts need to bring to our shows. It's a deep care for our audience. And you do this tenfold. Like, this is where you excel. And it's obviously you're deeply invested in your success of your clients. And that's coming through in your show to the audience and sounding like you're deeply caring about me as just a passive listener. And that goes to me not wanting to miss your episodes. All
right. Okay. All right. So I like the first thing, and I like the last thing that you talked about the on-air coaching.
Yep.
Never thought about that.
I think it would be great for you.
Considered that.
Yeah. Well, and you can keep it micro. Like, you don't have to tackle their whole relationship. You could just tackle one thing. So you can keep it short. You can keep it 20 minutes to 30 minutes. That you can just tackle one goal that they would like to have, or one shift that they'd like to make in the show, because you don't want to air everything out. You don't want to let them. And when you listen to Kim Seltzer do this on her show, you'll understand it's not okay to let them go off on on their whole history of everything. You do a pre-call, you understand a little bit of that history thing, but you're there to focus and help both the audience learn through this person and this person make a shift by asking them questions, by getting them to think about it. Sometimes they do get choked up on the show. It does happen. But that's because you hit the spot that was right for them. Right. And, and they know it. Or they get joy and you hear it. You hear the breakthrough. So if those happen on your show, that's going to be beautiful. You want to, that's your ultimate goal. But we want to make it small and a single thing that we're accomplishing, because you can't tackle everybody's entire relationship in every session you do with them anyway, right? So be thinking about that. Yeah, if we keep it small. So here's the last thing that I want to leave you with in terms of coaching, because you're going to be working with a coach on your website things. So you have really small blog posts for the podcast episodes. Yeah. And the problem is you're a great topic. You also have blogs that you've written.
Yeah.
Why aren't they the same thing? Why aren't you using your topic episode as the blog for the week?
Because I don't know how to do that.
Okay, but you can. You're writing blogs anyway.
I like writing blogs. I like writing.
And that's great, but it takes a lot more work to write one than it does to sit down and speak on the microphone, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. And the blogs are shorter. They're not usually as many words because you take more time. You're more methodical about writing than you are. But here's the thing. Google will reward the spoken word more than it will reward the written word. And Google decides who's going to, when I'm looking for a relationship coach or a life coach, Google's going to decide who comes up on the first page, not a human being. And so we need to make sure that our websites do that for us. And so that's where combining written blogs and spoken blogs, which are transcripts, right? I call them verbal SEO, verbal search engine optimization. You may have heard that term before, where because of the words that you're using when you speak, they're very different from when you write. And because you will be repetitive enough, but you'll use slight variations on the words, and you'll also use them in layman's terms. So you'll make it so that you're not using as scientific terms, or you're not as industry terms for some of you out there who might have industry shows, but you're using the terms that your audience can clearly understand when they're not in the know of, what you normally talk about every single week, or, what you would talk about with your clients. We're not defining any psychological profiles or anything, right? We're using the term of what I know as pain or aspiration. And when we blog those as straight transcript blogs, right? We don't mess with them. We take out ums and ahs, and we fix them, edit them just a little. They will take you a heck of a lot less time than the actual written one, but it will have actually more power of getting organic keywords associated with you and your coaching business. And that's what we want to have happen. So you've got all this great content. Now we want to make that connection happen. So Lewis, there's, technical things and, power things, like things that just power up a little bit, like the intro outro is going to be a little power up on the effectiveness of what you're doing and saying on your show, right? So technical and power things, we want to tackle them in ways that we feel comfortable with, in an order of which we feel comfortable with, and of course, at a pace that is helping us really grow our business. Is there anything else, any questions, anything burning about what your show is like and how it's working that you have a question for me about?
All right, so I need to get rid of, you already dealt with the main one. I need to get rid of the intro and the outro. Except for the interviews.
Yeah,
I just read what the person sent me. I put a bio together. Like when they send me their bio, I put it together in a way. I don't read everything that they send me.
Right, you personalize it. I heard you do that.
So, and I read what's written.
Yeah.
So there's no, it's on the computer. I read it like that, and most people like that. They like when I read their bio, they like my voice.
And you should still do that. And that's totally not something you would have a voiceover artist, right? A formal intro is just about making sure people know they're in the right place for your show and know how to find you. Like, it's super simple, but it's just so you don't have to do housekeeping items before your interview, because that's weird, or housekeeping items immediately after your interview. It's also weird, right? You want to have that interview piece be all in its entirety. So the only time I will do some, what I call housekeeping, which is sending people to the website, is when I'm going to say, if you want to connect with Lewis, here's where you're going to go, to the blog post for this episode at thebingefactor.com. And I promise you, not only are you going to have all the links to his social media and his website, but I'm going to give you a sample episode that you should take a listen to. And so, I might say something like that, or a download they offered, or the link to the book they mentioned on the show. This is what you'll say, because you're just reminding them where to go for this particular interview person. That's a great way to close the show and end the interview piece. And so what I would do is I usually mention that, and then I'd say, So, Lewis, thank you so much for being on the show. I really appreciate your time. Is there any last words you'd like to leave our audience with, or any last pieces of advice? Or, so I'd have a last question that follows that housekeeping item, because that way I train my listeners to not, as soon as I say, and you can go to thebingefactor.com, I don't want them to tune out. I want them to come in and stay all the way through till that formal intro starts playing. And so I want that thing to be a last question.
Okay.
Yep. Oh. So yeah, keep that power you've got in the middle. That's your power piece. So keep it on your interviews. Keep it all you.
Okay.
Yeah. Because because you're in your element, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm stirring the pot. Yeah,
that's right. I love that term. Yep. And that's how I feel. I feel like I'm in my element when I'm doing that, right? That's a great feeling, right? You've got it right. Yeah. And when you don't, right? When it's not right. So, and when it this happens on occasion, feel free to dump an episode. If you felt like that was off, your audience will know. Whether it's an interview that just didn't feel authentic. I've had people come on and be interviewed, and they just were reading sound bites. They've been overly prepped by a media person, and it just I couldn't get them to give a real answer to anything. And I just felt like at the end of the day, I don't want to share that with my audience. It doesn't feel right to me.
Okay, so what?
Go ahead and do that.
What do you do with it?
Well, usually I'll make that, because I'm a nice person. I'll say, so now all of you people who may have happened to, and it's only happened like 3 times in the thousands of interviews I've done, but is that I usually will say, something technical happened. The sound was really bad. I'm not comfortable with airing this episode. So I'm going to hold this, and, I'll get you back on my schedule. And then it just never happens, because they also know, they know, and they won't push to get back on the show, because they also walked away from that interview going, that was awkward. I didn't feel good about it. Okay, they have the same feeling. They just won't admit it either.
Okay, but why did they prep so much why do people do that for the show?
Well, sometimes they hire publicists who over prep them, or prepping them for radio and TV, which is very different than podcasting. And so there's an uncomfortableness that they didn't expect, because they never tried a podcast interview before. It'll typically happen when it's someone new to podcast interviewing. But anyway, I'm not worried about you. You got this. But just feel, if you don't feel that it's the pot you wanted to stir that day, then you just hold it or don't air it, because you're in control of that content for your audience, and when it's good. I want to ask you so that you can share this with the audience. How does podcasting make you feel?
It's great. I love it. That's what I started with.
Yeah.
I didn't start with the coaching. I started with the podcasting. The coaching came from the podcasting.
See, I love that. It led to a business that feels right for you.
Yeah. I love it.
I love that. Well, Lewis Morris, the heart matters with life coach Lewis Morris. I love that you found your place. I love that you found the show that's right for you, and the business that's right for you as well. So thank you for sharing that all with us here at the Binge Factor and with our audience. I really appreciate you.
Yeah, me too. I appreciate you having me on. Thank you.
Keep podcasting out there. As always, everyone, thebingefactor.com, and I'll connect you up with Lewis and all of those resources that I offered Lewis as well. Thanks again for listening, everyone. I'll be back next time with another Binge Factor.
You've been listening to the Binge Factor podcast. For more information on podcasting and videocasting success tips and tactics, please go to thebingefactor.com. And be sure to listen to our other show for podcasters called Feed Your Brand. If you'd like to be interviewed on this show, as well as featured in Tracy's column, please go to thebingefactor.com/guest and apply.